Welcome, everyone. Whether you're joining us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or even catching this on replay, I'm so glad you're here. Let's go ahead and make sure this stream is streaming because, me and tech sometimes don't always get along. Go ahead and drop where you're tuning in from in the chat, a quick hello, or where you're coming in from. Just before this, behind the scenes, we were talking about super spiritual places like Sedona. I'll be there in a few weeks for a business conference. But I'm really excited for the conversation today because it's Women's Month. And so we're not just talking about leadership today. We're going to be specifically talking about women in leadership and how to stay true to themselves while rising to the top. This is something that I've personally struggled with. And I feel like a lot of my clients have experienced this and have had to work through that. And a lot of times is why they end up on a job search. Now, I think that we've made incredible progress as a whole. And there are more women leading than ever before, but there's still work to do. And so I want to talk today about how to be strong and authentic, how to set boundaries and prove our commitment, how to own our power while being comfortable that sometimes not everybody's always going to be comfortable with that. So I am thrilled to bring to the stage Renee. She is here with us today in her zone of genius. So coach, Renee, do you want to go ahead and give a little intro to who you are and what you're about?
Yeah, thanks so much, Tegan. Hello, I'm so happy to be here. Just a really quick snippet of me. I was an educator for 25 years, and 16 of those I was a high school and middle school principal. And in 2022, I decided that I wanted to venture into something bigger. There was this really strong tension within me that was feeling like I was made for more. And I was also suffering some burnout. And so I left my career in education. I became a coach specifically with women to work on those who were basically the past version of me, those women who were wanting to show up in leadership as themselves, but were basically being told that that wasn't good enough. And so those are the women that I get to work with today. And I've had amazing opportunities to help women stay in those roles and those positions while still leading authentically.
I love that. It's like so for all of you who are not coaches or who are not entrepreneurs, the idea of finding a niche that the market resonates with, because ultimately you've got to find clients who need the service enough in demand, so it's not like you're done with it and then it's over with. And so the fact that you're able to keep this on shows just how badly this is needed from us. So quick shout out. Hey, John, happy Women's Month. John is one of the resume writers here at Team JYC. He is amazing, an incredible designer. And Estelle from Crystal Lake. Shout out to my fellow Crystal Lake people.
Yeah.
Small I know world, guys. We just found out that we both have a lot more in common than we knew before this call.
I know Estelle, and I'm so happy she's here.
Yay! All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So you work with a lot of high achieving women, just absolute badasses, and they come to you seeking support. What are some common struggles that high achieving women face that are solvable?
Yeah. I'll say the number one is facing their truth. So I think so often we shove the truth down below us, inside of us, out of fear that people are going to see the real us. And so I would say what most people come to me that I get to work with is specifically on uncovering their truth. How do they want to show up in leadership? And first, before we even talk about leadership, it's like, how do you want to show up in life? right? So, what are the things that you're stashing away because you're fearful of other people's judgment, or you're fearful of how maybe your company might see you? That I feel like is first and foremost, which I think leads into imposter syndrome, which we all face,
Yeah.
right? Is the fear of not being enough, the fear of speaking our truth in meetings, or sharing an idea only to feel like we might get rejected. So I would say speaking your truth and not feeling like you're enough are probably the two. I would say the top two that I work with women in high level leadership positions. I'm sure there's others, but those are the two that come to mind the most.
I see that a lot with clients that I work, like job seeker clients that I work with on their, like they're coming, hey Tegan, can you help me with my resume? And it's amazing that imposter syndrome that you talked about,
Mhm.
how sometimes the culture of the organizations that we serve sure can have a way of beating us down and
Mhm.
really making us feel like something might be wrong with us, or that we can't trust our instincts, or whatever it may be. And I'm sitting there hearing the amazing things that these women have accomplished, and it's
Yeah.
like, skills aren't your problem. Confidence is right now. Your ability to articulate it in a way after sometimes experiencing cultures in which weren't the healthiest environments. And so,
Mhm.
what's a shift that we can do to strengthen that trust we have within ourselves, especially if we're in transition or we're stepping into our power with that newfound emotional intelligence that it takes some time to get to that point where we know ourselves that well.
Yeah, like, listen, that's what I work with my clients on. I think it's hard to sometimes do that on your own, to be quite honest with you. I think you've got to find somebody who's done it before. I'm not saying go out there and spend thousands of dollars on a coach. It could be a mentor that's already within your company, or somebody that you know from your past experience, because it's really hard to do this work on our own, to figure out how to get out of imposter syndrome, how to figure out how we're enough, unless somebody is on the other side that's been where we've been and can help guide you back to yourself, right? To help you realize that everything you have within you is enough.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't get to the position that you are just by default. In fact, I used to make a joke of that as a principal, because I sometimes felt like such an imposter that when people asked me what I did, and I would tell them, because I was a principal in some high achieving school districts, very well known, one here in Chicago, in Chicagoland. And when people found out that's where I was a principal, that it was almost like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're a principal there. And so that always made me feel a little bit like, do I really belong here? Am I really that good? I needed somebody to help me say, I didn't get here by default. And that was always my MO when somebody would ask me what I do, and they were like, wow, that's a really big job. And wow, you work there. And I'd like, yeah, I think I kind of landed there by default. And that was a way to just kind of deflect back the feelings that I was having within myself of, maybe I couldn't stand tall and true to that person who could see something in me that I wasn't able to see in myself. Right. So I would love to tell everybody that you can do this on your own. I think that you can. I think it takes a lot longer when you're trying to do it on your own. I know this because I was one of those women, right, who was trying to figure it all out on her own, how to be enough, how to stand in that position firmly with confidence and with full security. Having somebody who can mentor or guide you and remind you that you have all the skills, all the certifications, all the knowledge and the wisdom that you need to be standing exactly where you are. So important.
The stories we tell ourselves is what makes us our own worst enemy when we're in that,
Hmm.
which is why it makes it difficult to do on our own, and why having a sounding board
Yes.
helps. Because when you're looking at facts, it's a lot easier to be pragmatic about it than when you're dealing with emotions. But one of the emotions that comes into a lot of women, a lot of high achieving women, is burnout.
Mm.
Whether you're a parent or not, there are household responsibilities. There are aging loved ones. There's people in your friend group, in the community, whatever, that rely on you. There's just a lot of extra responsibilities of, okay, are you going to volunteer here? You know, women are asked to volunteer, men are asked to open their pockets.
Mhm.
There's just so many differences in that, and burnout can be so easy
Mhm.
for high achieving women because we do more and we do more and we do more. And so when you see women that fall into that burnout trap, where do we go?
Yeah. Well, listen, those are the stories that have been told to us for years, for our entire lives, that that's what women do, right? We're supposed to do everything for everyone else but ourselves. You saw it on TV, you saw it in commercials, you saw it in ads, you see it in the workplace, you saw it with your own family, right? So that's what you believe, that's who you should be, is the overgiver, people pleaser, do everything for everyone else but yourself, until you get to a place like I did, where I was so burned out, I physically was, sent to the ER. I was giving so much of myself to everyone else that, although I thought that I had established really good boundaries for myself, I obviously didn't. If I landed in the ER because of me, I was at the breaking point, basically, right? I was at the breaking point of not being able to take care of myself anymore because I was so focused on taking care of everyone else. And so when I work with women today on this exact topic, I ask them the question, why do you do that? Why do you give everything to everyone else? Where did you learn that? Where is that a part of your story? And then we work to rewrite that story. We work to learn how to say yes to ourselves, and understanding when we're saying no to somebody, that's actually saying we're saying yes back to ourselves. So I operate from my gut, and I can think of so many times in my life when somebody has asked me to do something and my gut has said no, but I've said yes anyway, right? I know that you probably can relate to this, Tegan.
Oh, 100%.
Right? It's probably still happening. I probably still do it, but I certainly don't do it to the extent that I did it before.
This doggone 5K that's coming up, school district, you know which one I'm talking about? Yeah, that's my gut saying absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I signed
And
up.
here's the thing, those are our boundaries. We have to say, like, oh, it would be really nice for me to be a part of that and to show my support. But if I'm stretched thin in all these other places, that's just one more thing that I'm adding to my plate. And quite honestly, that leads to resentment. Right.
100%.
And that resentment shows up in a lot of different places than where it's probably needs to be directed to. And often it's directed back to yourself. So that resentment shows up in our partnerships, right? In our marriages, it shows up in our work relationships. That resentment shows up in a lot of different places. But ultimately, the resentment should lie within yourself because you're the one that's not setting the boundaries for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely challenging to learn how to juggle it all. I have a girlfriend who is a relatively new single mom. And so she's got her kids all but 4 days a month and just trying to figure it out now how to juggle. I was like, well, you were essentially doing that all before anyways. And so now it's just, you have,
can I add to that? Because you asked me this question. I didn't really answer this, Tegan. I think even because you said we are at an age, especially when we hit that level in the ladder, right? The career ladder. Now we've got I don't have kids, but I know many women who have kids who also are navigating their aging parents. You're navigating not only your career, but you're in between the aging parents and taking care of your kids and also taking care of your family, right? Being able to find the time in your days to take care of you, even if that's for 30, 45 minutes in the morning and it's a 15-minute walk in the middle of the day, to give some time back to yourself, to find stillness and to get centered. Because here's the thing, we're on the go all the time. Our nervous system is dysregulated, I would say 90% of the time, because we're always on the go and we're never able to find that time to be still and find center.
Yeah. I could not agree with you more. I am probably not as woo as you, but really, really appreciate a lot of the practices. Like every night we meditate before bed, and that's just a thing to calm like everybody down and to like turn work off and move on to like the next routines and things like that. And I was in therapy, and I just like I believe in therapy. If
Me too.
And I was like, I set these routines and these practices for my children. It's so hard to honor it for myself.
Mm,
And so I had to get really good at calendar blocking. And sometimes shit just hits the fan and things have to get moved. But I have stickers. Where are they at? Well, you can't see them on the floor, but I have a sticker chart for myself on my
mm,
big ass calendar, like that 12-month calendar. And
yeah.
every single time I make it to yoga, I put a little yoga sticker on it. And when I like remember to take my vitamins, I put a little sticker on it because it's just that visual reminder like, okay, I am honoring myself. I'm taking that time for myself. The ones that I just ordered, now that it's finally getting nicer, a little walking thing where like every afternoon I want to make sure I go out and walk the dog. But when you're in burnout, it's so hard to see how you can even make those things happen. So
Mhm.
starting off little is great. Maybe just go on a 10-minute walk after you go to the bathroom.
Mhm.
That's just your trigger. Okay, I have to stop to use the restroom. I'm going to extend it for 10 minutes just to get a little fresh air.
Yeah.
Something. What are some other tricks that high achieving women can use to create some type of space for themselves?
Yeah, I think you first of all nailed it with the time blocking, right? And I think blocking some time specific for yourself. When I work with women who are overproductive, right? They're hard workers and they work from the time they get up in the morning until they go to sleep at night. It's really being intentional about setting some time aside in your day and figuring out where do you have that time in your day to give back to yourself,
Yeah.
right? Not everybody's great with meditation. I'm not great with meditation. I do it at night before I go to bed because I want to clear my mind of the day and start fresh the next day. But for some, it could just be even journaling, right? And getting your thoughts out on your paper. For some, it could be, first thing in the morning is kind of looking at your schedule for the day, getting a grasp of it, getting centered in what your day, setting your intention for the day and how you want to show up for yourself,
Yeah.
right? So it could be one intention, which is I am patient, right? And what does that look like for myself? If I am patient, what does that look like as I'm going throughout my day? And writing that down and putting on a sticky note and keeping that somewhere close to you so that you're reminded that that's your intention for the day, right? I find that working with women who have packed schedules, it's finding what part of their days do they feel like they can give back to themselves and finding what they can do in those moments. So I think a lot of different strategies can work. Meditation, yes, possibly. Going for a walk, I think absolutely. If you can get outside, I think even Mel Robbins says this, right? If you can go out for a 10-minute walk first thing in the morning, which is what I do every morning with my dog, and you can just get out and start moving. And even as you're on that walk, is just letting your mind wander and just soaking in the experience. So there's something called savoring the experience as well that I think is really profound. I do it on my walks every morning. I just basically take in the smells, the scents, the sounds, even the taste of the air. Sometimes I want to take in. I just really want to savor that experience. And if you can't get out on that walk, it might be in your shower and savoring the experience of the shower. And maybe you have this yummy smelling shampoo or soap or lather that you put in. And really, for that 5 or 10 minutes or however long you take a shower, you're in that shower and you're just present with yourself and you're taking in all of the senses of being in that space, right? I would say, if in my old days, my time for myself would usually be at the end of the day. But what I learned is that if I could sprinkle 10 or 15 minutes into the start of my day, into the middle of my day, and then probably give myself about 30 minutes at the end of the day to let go of that day, that's probably the best practice. And whatever that is for you, it could be journaling, it could be getting outside for a 10 or 15-minute walk. Sometimes I would take my lunch. As a principal, I very rarely had time to take my lunches. But I would always give myself 15 minutes of time to just get outside, even in the snow. I just would put the warm jacket on and get out and get for a walk and inhale some of that fresh air. So giving yourself little spurts of time throughout the day to give back to yourself, I think is really important. I also think if you can get more than that time to yourself, that's also really key. I say like 15 minutes of time. That's like the minimum. But getting yourself into that yoga class like you were talking about, Tegan, even if it's at home or doing breath work, whatever that might be, whatever gets you out of your head and back into your heart and being present, regulating that nervous system, because that's really what we're trying to do is we're trying to regulate our nervous system, because sometimes we don't even know that our nervous system is dysregulated. But when we're losing patience with somebody, or we're snapping at someone, or we don't feel like we have time to give to somebody else, that means we're feeling dysregulated. So it's finding those things that are going to regulate your, by the way, I want to add this too. I think this is key, and this has helped a lot for my clients, and a lot of people don't know about it. Binaural beats or solfeggio frequencies. I don't know if you've ever heard of those before, but if you look them up on Spotify or Pandora platform, binaural beats is really powerful to
Like
just
sound bath type of
kind of, yeah. If you just put binaural beats and maybe you put focus or you put sleep in onto whatever music platform you listen to, you put those in and allow yourself to just be immersed in the sound for 15, 20 minutes. That also can bring you back to yourself and start to regulate your nervous system.
Love it. Lisa says 15 minutes can do so much. Lisa,
Knows this.
girl, you're preaching to the choir. I love the idea of doing something in the morning. I'm a morning person. I can get up. I was up at 2:00 this morning.
Oh,
And not because I wanted to be, because my husband was tossing and turning. And it was like, okay, well, I can't go back to sleep now. And I just started getting stuff done. And I'm excited about it because that means I get to be done early today. And I will go to bed really early today, but whatever. And I have a tracker for my clients. I call it the wonderful day design and the wonderful week design, like breaking out what's your long-term goal. So what do we need to accomplish each week to get ourselves closer to that goal, and tracking the ROI and da. Super type A. But one of the things is it was like 5 a.m. Wake up and do something for yourself. And they're like, who wakes up at 5 a.m.? I was like, these little kids wake up so early. That's what time it is for me. If that's 9 a.m. for you, then it's 9 a.m. for you. But starting the day, other than what's on the job board.
Yeah, totally. And I think also what I also appreciate is flow, is finding a flow for you. I think we can also get really caught up in the checklist of things that we need to get accomplished and we need to do, which focuses us more here. I think really getting into, and I don't think that this is as woo as people think it is, but really getting into our gut and saying, like, how do I feel right now? I think that there's something to be said about that 5 a.m. Sometimes you got to challenge yourself a little bit to get into that habit of waking up early, if you know that's going to give you a little bit more time to set your day up for success, right? So even though that may feel a little like scary for some people to get up that early, if getting up an hour early is going to give you a place to get peace of mind for the rest of your day, then I'd say do it and keep doing it for probably 21 days straight and see how it's working out for you. I also want to mention getting into the flow, because it doesn't need to be a rigid structure every single day of you doing the exact same thing. Go with your heart. What does your heart feel like you want to do right now? If you just want to sit there and put some binaural beats on and drink some coffee or some tea, do that. Maybe you want to journal, do that. Maybe you just want to sit there and look outside at the beautiful sunrise coming up, and that's your form of meditation and getting set for the day. Do that. But don't feel like you have to get into this rigid structure that every day has to be the same routine, because you can also get caught up in that too.
Yes, ladies, please ignore all the Insta influencers who say you have to follow this routine to be successful, because everybody's definition of success looks a little bit different. And Renee, I think your version of success has probably changed, as is many women's idea of success. And so what did success look like for you, say when you were a principal, compared to what it looks like now when you've found this next iteration of yourself?
Yeah. It's a really good question, a really powerful question, Tegan. I feel like success for me when I was a principal was my title, was the money that I was making, the car that I was driving, the house that I was living in, the travel that I got to go on, and being able to be seen as a figure of power to some degree. I feel like that's what success looked like for me. And it's also what tore me down. Right.
Yeah.
And it's also what made it very difficult for me to leave that role, is because my identity was so wrapped up in all of that. Right. So when I made that decision to leave, which by the way happened over the course of many years, it wasn't just all of a sudden one day I was like, I'm leaving. I had tried over the course of probably 7 or 8 years to make this decision for myself. So when I finally made that decision, I had to redefine what success looked like for me. And it had nothing to do with money, because I'll tell you, when I left my career as a principal, making a beautiful six-figure salary for 16 years of my life and dropping to absolutely nothing, right, for 16 months of my life, not getting a paycheck, I learned really quickly that money wasn't what made me happy,
Yep.
right? Freedom allowed me to find happiness. And so, being able to have the flexibility in my day to take my dog on a walk, right? To spend time with my husband before he goes to work, to go to the grocery store when I want to, not just on the pocket of window on a Saturday morning when I can get to it, right? Versus my other day. Happiness to me is about having the freedom to show up in the way that I want to show up for myself. Which I know when I show up in that way, I'm also of better service to others. That's what happiness is for me. And I didn't have that freedom before, because I was under everybody else's thumb all the time, doing for them what I wasn't doing for myself.
I'm right there with you. And so much so that my experience with a lot of my clients has driven them to entrepreneurship, to consulting, to coaching, to building their own products. And the freedom sounds amazing, but some of the toxic traits that we can have in corporate can also happen as an entrepreneur. So it's not a get out of jail free card. And there's a lot of women who find entrepreneurship or consulting or freelance work, whatever, is not for them. And that corporate is for them, but they feel stuck in whatever situation they're in now. And the job market, it has crashed the past couple of weeks. It's been really bad, where towards the end of the year last year, where we were seeing a huge uptick, and people are nervous about making changes right now in their life because there's so much instability. Eggs are $10, gas is $6. I mean, it's just crazy. And so how do we find freedom, whatever that means, find success, whatever that means for us as individuals in such uncertain times, like where there's that mental block or resistance of change is bad, change is bad, change is bad. But really, these type of changes that we're talking about here today are such a beautiful way to honor ourselves.
I think, what comes up to me when you ask this question is you have to find hope. Right. I talk a lot in my posts about the light. And I think every single one of us has a light within us. And as we proceed through life, especially if we're in situations or positions or roles or marriages, even, that our light just gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer to a place where we're almost an ember, right? We need to figure out how to fan that flame within us. And if leaving your role right now in that position isn't the best fit for you, and I know it's a tough job market, right? Or being an entrepreneur, which is really hard. And by the way, being an entrepreneur is going to make you see yourself on the deepest level possible. I've had to work through so many shadows of myself in order to find a level of success that I'm at right now. So it's not easy work, and it's the hard that I've chosen. But for those who are in these roles and feel kind of like stuck because of the job market, because they don't feel like there's a way out right now, you have to start searching for the light within you. And that might be a future version of you, right? That maybe we're not ready to do right now, but that you're beginning to build a visualization within yourself of who that future version of you is going to be. That becomes a light that you have to look forward to, because the job market isn't going to be like this forever. So now is the time. Now is the time to plant the seeds for what your future self is going to look like.
All right, ladies, let's light it up, because once we see our future self, our mind has already envisioned that as a reality, and there's no turning it back once we've seen that kind of success for ourselves. So I want to be respectful of your time, Renee. I know we're at time, but just real quick, you do networking events and retreats, and it's so amazing, and you have one coming up. Can you share a little bit about that? And for everybody tuning in, if you're not on my email list already, I will subscribe, because you get all the replays and all the juicy details and special offers of everybody that I have on as a guest.
I love that.
So,
I love that.
and put it in the comments too.
Yes. So 3 weeks ago, we held our first retreat in Nashville. In fact, Lisa's on right now. She was a part of that just a few weeks ago. It was amazing, life-changing for many women, 72 hours. And some walked in one way and walked out a completely different way. We've got one coming up in Miami, June 19th through the 22nd. If you're interested, go to my profile on LinkedIn under Renee DeVore. I've got an email list in my featured section that you can get on and get direct communication to you about that event specifically. We're going to have an information session coming up on March 24th. So get on that email list soon so you can be a part of that.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited to find out more. For everybody tuning in, thank you so much. If you have any questions or want to explore any of the things that we talked about today, I know Renee is an open book. Just shoot her a DM, send her a connection request. Be sure to follow her. Her content is amazing. And next week, I do not have a guest on Friday, because it is spring break and I am going to take the day to go inside and play. So I am not having any amazing guests on next week. So Renee, you are my last guest.
I love it.
March, which is Women's Month, and I couldn't have ended this month's live series on a better note. So thank you so much for being here.
So grateful. I so appreciate, Tegan, you having me here today. And for anybody who's out there listening to this, serve yourself first and the rest will follow.
Yes, love it. All right, everybody. I will see you in a couple of weeks.